Wednesday, July 12th, and this is Geeknights. Tonight we speak at great length about our experiences at Connecticon 2006.
Let's do this.
So, I grew up in a place where tornadoes were commonplace.
Kansas?
No,
Texas?
Michigan.
Oklahoma?
Lots of tornadoes, to the point that, tornadoes and thunderstorms, and we just didn't really care because they tended to follow the roads and not do much damage.
Not too many tornadoes in New York, Connecticut. I mean, there may be one every couple of years, but not too many.
Yeah, which I found funny because when there was like a tornado watch and people at my work were all, a tornado? Oh no, what do we do? And I was like, what, you sit in your basement? Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much what you do. Tornado warning, in the basement. When the tornado's gone, out of the basement.
Despite the fact that so many tornadoes and storms had come through and I grew up with them, no tornado had ever affected my life because where I grew up, tornadoes were common, so everything was kind of designed in a way that tornadoes really didn't affect your daily life. If a tornado came through, it didn't knock the power out, it didn't do anything, it just kind of went through, disappeared, knocked a couple trees down, and everyone went on with their lives. It took me, today, 5 hours to get home from work. For 5 hours, I was sitting in my car because a tornado momentarily ripped through some parts of downstate New York, which crippled the entire road infrastructure of New York City to the point that no one could leave the city. Every road going north was closed. Not only were they closed, but I was driving home. I left work early, and I'm driving, and then suddenly traffic is stopped up ahead. And there's an exit like a mile past this stop. So, all right, I figured there's probably an accident. I'll get off on this exit right there. I can practically see the exit because it's right there. And no, traffic didn't move at all. As in, it just didn't move for 2 hours.
Couldn't you go in the median and get to the exit?
There's no median. It's a parkway in New York City. There's a giant cement divider. The lanes were narrow. It was brick wall, lane, brick wall.
You couldn't put the tire on the grass or anything.
There's no grass.
Oh.
I turned my car off and sat there listening to podcasts and reading Anansi Boys for 2 hours. Then I spent the next 3 hours.
Man, if I was stuck in there, I probably could have finished the stupid Lensman book.
Then I spent
which isn't really so stupid.
3 hours trying to get home. I eventually got home. It sucked. So basically my entire day consisted of work, driving, podcast, soon to be sleep.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is in New York, it's sort of, it's like it's like a triangle with the pointy bit at the bottom and then New York City. So everyone's trying to get from this is crammed into the bottom of the pointy part of a triangle and then spreading out to this wide part of a triangle. But there's really only like 3 or 4 roads that go north and like 2 of them that go northeast, which aren't so useful for us. So since it's still kind of narrow, if a tornado goes perpendicular to those roads, which it did along 287, then there's really difficult to go north.
I called Scott, and we're going back and forth trying to figure out how I can get home, since he's sitting there with Google Maps being my navigator. And every road was closed. It was like 684. Nah, it's closed. 84. Oh, shit truck exploded on it.
Yep.
Which is not a joke.
Yeah, a sewage truck exploded.
Then the driver drove the truck away, and they eventually caught him somewhere in Connecticut, I think.
Well, he drove it away?
Well, it just it broke and spilled it everywhere, and he didn't want to deal with it.
Oh, so he unhitched the trailer, and he drove his truck away.
I think so. They caught him at some diner or rest stop or something.
Oh, okay. Because, it's one thing if he was dragging an exploded sewage truck around, but if, your trailer explodes, you just unhitch your truck and keep going. That's different.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm not going to bore you with the details of that. Maybe I'll talk about it on a Thursday or something.
It's on the national news. Go to Google News and search for New York.
No, I talk about my experiences sitting in a car for 5 hours.
Oh.
And all the fun I had there.
Yep.
You can tell the longer it went on, the less clothed I was. It started out like I'm driving.
But were
home.
there police everywhere?
There were police everywhere.
So why would you taking your clothes off?
Because I was really hot. Now,
all right, you have no air conditioning.
Didn't matter. Even if the air conditioning worked, there's no way I could have used it. Sitting stopped like that with air conditioning for that long would just overheat the car. You know how many cars overheated, caught fire, or just broke sitting there for all those hours because idiots wouldn't just turn them off because they wanted their AC. You can't sit in a parked car with the AC for 2 hours.
Well, you can't not for 2 hours, but for a little while you can.
Yeah.
Maybe like 20 minutes.
But the nice benefit of all this is once I got past Tarrytown where the real damage was, there was not a car on the road and not a cop on the road because all the cops were dealing with the crisis down south.
Well, at least the state cops, which are the ones
and the local
you worry.
cops. It was all local cops.
Yeah.
I didn't see a single state cop.
Well, those are the ones you got to worry about.
No, because they were busy dealing with other more important disasters, like on Route 6 and 202 and all that area.
Uh-huh.
So I went pretty much 100 miles an hour the rest of the way home.
Uh-huh.
It was real fun because there was no one on the road. No stoplights because they were all broken.
No, danger.
No, because there was no traffic. There were no lights. There was no one. The road was empty. It was just me. I didn't see another car for 20 minutes. It was awesome. I was like I was in my own personal rally race.
Great.
All right, anyway, once again, I won't bore you with all the details of that. Maybe I'll do a minute-by-minute accounting of it someday.
Someday, hopefully a long time from now, when we don't have to sit around going, so I was sitting in the car, not doing anything. I was sitting in the car, not doing anything.
Yeah? But
I was sitting in the car, still not doing anything.
All right, so it's Anime Day, and instead of a normal news...
Well, Anime Manga Comics Day, but there's no manga in comics.
Well, yeah, it's Anime Manga Comics Day, but we're talking mostly about anime today, so I'll call it Anime Day. But yeah, for the benefit of our new listeners, we should call it the actual thing. Because if you are a new listener and you're listening right now just for the Connecticon feedback/coverage, keep in mind that we go 4 nights a week. Mondays are science and tech, Linux, computers, all that. Tuesdays are gaming of all kinds. Thursdays are anything geeky. Wednesdays are obviously anime.
Yep. And, that's how it goes.
Yeah. But instead of a normal news, I have kind of a generic bit of talking to do, mostly about Anime World Order. Now, we sent them an audio feedback a while ago.
We talk about them so much. Do you want to play their promo? We've never played a promo before.
Yeah, I think I'll add a promo in tonight. I'm not sure how to deal with promos yet.
I think we'll just take it and we'll put it after the things of the day and before the main bit. Just paste it in there.
Yeah, either that or I'll stick them at the end.
End is good. Right.
Yeah, we'll try. Because the thing is, at least keep in mind, if we play a promo, that means that we're in some way endorsing it. We won't just play a promo because someone else played our promo.
That's right.
Now, we're going to play the Anime World Order one because while we disagree on almost every fandom topic there is about anime...
No, not everything, but...
We have this mutual kind of respect because they're really cool guys and a girl. We just disagree with them a lot.
Yeah.
But... they did our audio feedback, which was real good on their previous episode 26. And if you like what we say now, you should probably listen to that special episode. But more importantly, they reviewed MD Geist. And not only was that the best segment ever done on Anime World Order, but that was one of the funniest things I've ever heard on a podcast. I was also
ruffling mightily.
Because I had seen the first half hour of MD Geist, not even the first 20 minutes.
I may or may not have seen MD Geist. If I had seen it, I didn't remember any of it, but I have seen and heard of MD Geist. I've seen the box and I've heard of the show.
I rented it from Blockbuster.
And I knew it was bad.
And me and my brother watched it a while and we were just like, wow, this is crap. And we turned it off. And I didn't know that it ended that way, you guys. Oh my God.
It's not as bad as Grey the Digital Target.
No, because I don't think MD Geist is bad as in unwatchable. I think it's bad as in awesome.
I don't know.
Just, if anything, listen to that review. Even if you hate anime, you're just listening to today because you're one of those vivacious, ravenous Geeknights fans, and you listen to the Anime World Order review of MD Geist.
Yeah, it was 2 episodes ago because they just released an episode today.
Yeah, I'll link to it. Episode 26.
Yeah. All right. Their anime real kind of news. The Academy? As in capital Academy?
As in those people who decide which movie they're going to give awards to, but not give too many awards to. And
Yeah, in the Oscars when people say, I'd like to thank the Academy. Well, the Academy is really just a bunch of movie people, actors, directors, executives, producers, writers, special effects guys, all that sort of stuff, musicians.
Now, they're the ones who decide who actually wins those things.
Yeah, they nominate and vote on Oscars. That's what the Academy is. Well, they've decided to, they it used to be that the Academy was like more and more exclusive and getting smaller. But they've decided in recent years that they're going to, A, grow the Academy by about 30 members a year. And also, when people retire and or die, they will replace them as well. Finally, now most of the people in the Academy are from the U.S., but they do have many international people. And they have also raised the standards of quality. So now they used to just, nominate people, and then anyone on the list who met the qualifications would get in. Now they actually only pick the best people from the list, even if they met the qualifications. And our good friend from Japan, Miyazaki.
We use our good friend in the royal we sense, not in the we know the dude sense.
No, we don't know Miyazaki, but if we did, wouldn't we be awesome?
Oh, yes, quite.
Yeah, we know him.
Yeah,
we know of him.
He came over and used my bathroom.
Yeah, so Miyazaki has been invited to the Academy, which means that there is a chance, because generally he's one of the animators in the Academy, so usually they have more, I think they have, it's kind of a secret, but they definitely have more push in, nominating works of animation and voting on them. So hopefully he can put in some sort of influence, and maybe there'll be some more anime Oscars in the future.
In the very least, I'm just very happy that the Academy and these people have decided to recognize the vast talent that is Miyazaki.
Yeah, now, if only they would get, because, some of there are other animators in Japan besides Miyazaki who are better than some animators in the Academy. Not to say that animators in the Academy besides Miyazaki are bad, because I'm sure there are a bajillion great ones there. But, to have one guy represent all the greatness that is over there, I can think of at least 3 or 4 more guys who need to be brought over.
I can think of some guys
should have been brought over in their day.
I can think of some guys who shouldn't be brought over, too.
Oh, I can think of plenty of those as well. So there you have it.
So you want to hear people talk about Japanese cartoons?
Anime.
But you think the other anime podcasters just aren't nerdy enough?
Sounds like you need to join forces with the Anime World Order,
Where each week 3 self-proclaimed experts offer you reviews
Of titles both new and classic, news and commentary,
rants, convention reports, interviews with fandom,
and some hentai and yaoi for good measure.
so search for anime in the iTunes Music Store.
Or visit our website at animeworldorder.com.
Anime World Order, revealing the truth about anime, one podcast at a time.
Things of the day.
Thingy.
Real briefly,
Thing 1 and thing 2.
For all of our new listeners, this is the segment which comes directly after that wonderful music where we talk about our things of the day. Whatever weird crap thing we've seen in the last 24 hours that for whatever reason we've decided to share with our listeners.
Because it's awesome and entertaining enough that we think that every geek who has an internet connection should go and look at it.
All right, so without further ado, what is your thing of the day?
My thing of the day is rhymetorrents.com.
Rhymetorrents.com.
You know what's at rhymetorrents.com?
Rhyme Torrents?
Well, let me read the about. This was an effort to round up all of the nerdcore hip-hop artists I could find and get them to do new, unreleased tracks. Be warned, it will challenge your assumptions as to what nerdcore hip-hop is. Not all the tracks are easily pigeonholed. The production quality varies. It's free. Quit your whining. The individual tracks are available, so you can make your own mix of your favorite tracks. You can even print your own favorite cover art. On this site is a shit ton of varying quality nerdcore hip-hop.
Yeah, there is good nerdcore, and there is bad nerdcore.
And there are 4 torrents. The first torrent is all new tracks. The second torrent is more all new tracks. The third torrent is rare and classic tracks. And the fourth torrent are rare, classic, and unreleased tracks. The fifth torrent, which is coming soon, is going to be all unreleased tracks.
Uh-huh.
So if you go there, there's some awesome, you can get the separate torrents, or there's one torrent that gives you all the volumes that are out right now. So if you are as yet unexposed or only mildly exposed to the wonderfulness that is the nerdcore, this is the site for you.
Boba, the Fett.
Exactly. Exactly.
Honestly, my favorite is still the Lords of the Rhymes.
Yeah. Let's see what kind of guys are on here. The 13 MCs, 16 minutes long.
You know what? I got to give mad props to Optimus Rhyme, though, too. I really...
MC plus plus, MC Rection, Doc Popular, 0 bit rate, Hamstar.
Humsa.
Exactly.
All right.
Ultra Clystron, Optimus Rhyme,
Optimus Rhyme is the
MC
man.
Hawking, MC Frontalot, Futuristic Sex Robots, Dr. Octagon. Lots of good guys in here.
Yeah.
I'm sure MC Chris is in there somewhere.
Now, of course, if you've never heard of Nerdcore, which what kind of geek are you? I suggest you go check out some Optimus Rhyme, MC Frontalot, and Lords of the Rhymes in short order.
Yeah, see, Nerdcore is hip-hop about nerd stuff, geek stuff. So that's what that is. It's like Filk. Filk is nerdy, geeky folk music. And Nerdcore is nerdy, geeky hip-hop.
I mean, I just remember when I was at Katsucon and the Nerdcore artist there, the thing was, it was like a Black Power rally, but it was Nerd Power. And he gave a fiery burn the frat houses down speech to a screaming crowd of nerds and then proceeded to sing. And it was badass.
Badass indeed. Hence, you should go get these torrents.
Now, Scott had a new thing of the day, so I've countered that with an old thing of the day. This is something that way back we were doing kind of retro things of the day, you know, things like Coin Bad and Lobster Magnet that had been forgotten or unknown to many of the younger people online. And this isn't that old, but it is quite well known among most people, but I have a feeling some people might have missed it, and the fact that I forgot to bring it up during our retro weeks was a crime.
Yeah, this one was sort of under the radar. I mean, I had seen it once after Rim showed it to me, and then he mentioned it, and I was like, I kind of remember, I don't know, maybe. And then he showed it to me, and I was like, oh yeah, that thing that I saw once.
Yep, because someone in the forums was like, how come you didn't do Dr. Tran? And I said,
Tran.
Because I totally forgot, and I'll do it tomorrow. Dr. Tran. I don't want to ruin what Dr. Tran is. Just go to the link and watch it. But Dr. Tran is a real doctor. That's all I got to say about that.
A kick-ass doctor.
What?
Well, he has a PhD in kicking your ass.
Who are you? What is going on?
All right.
All right, so without further ado, we spent the previous Saturday at Connecticon in the Connecticut Convention Center in Hartford, Connecticut.
Hartford is the capital of Connecticut, for you people who do not know about small states.
Hartford is also, as far as I can tell, nothing but a convention center surrounded by an industrial and commercial zone.
You were far away from the actual city of Hartford, which is a moderate city.
So the convention center is just in the middle of nowhere. Then.
Yeah, the convention center is on like the edge of the city,
where
the industrial stuff is. It's not in the middle of the city where the tall buildings are. But yeah, it's sort of like, think of it as a mini Albany. You know, it's got a lot of state buildings in it and only like a couple businesses, not really any major super headquarters. You know, I mean, the super major headquarters that are near Hartford are in like the outskirts. Like my dad works at like the ultra super campus of the Cigna Insurance Company, which is way out in the middle of the woods. It's not in a big tall building in the city. So, you know, while Hartford, the city itself is kind of not the biggest, most amazing, it's actually got quite a semi-metropolitan area. And the suburbs of West Hartford are kind of, you know, suburby, and then East Hartford is kind of slummy.
Yep, but anyway, we were at Connecticut and Connecticon, which is not really an anime convention. It's more of a webcomic convention.
Hey, what does it actually say? Because
it says Connecticon.
Well, no, it said on the banner, they like listed all the things that the con has.
Well, the thing is, it plays out like an anime con because anime cons tend to be very general nowadays and very broad, and it had all the trappings of an anime con. The same kind of people went. It had the cosplayers, it had the masquerade, the AMV contest. It felt like an anime con. It did not feel like any of the other kinds of cons.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing it had going for it was that it had gaming. In fact, it had better gaming than a lot of gaming cons I've been to, which was quite surprising and welcome.
Yeah, it definitely had better gaming than Anime Next, which is surprising because, Anime Next is a bigger convention than Connecticon, at least as far as I could tell.
Yeah, but anyway, we actually talked about the gaming at Connecticon yesterday on our gaming podcast night.
So we're just going to go over what went down at Connecticon in chronological order.
Yep, more or less.
And we'll leave out the gaming parts. I'll pretty much say, this is the time when I played the game.
Yep, we might make little nods to it, because I do want to say, one, that the gaming at Connecticon, for anyone who is listening today just because of our report, was fantastic. It was very well done, and I give mad props to everyone involved in the gaming at this convention.
Mm-hmm.
However, in regards to the rest of the convention, despite anything we say, I want to say right now that Connecticon was by no means a bad convention. We've only been to one bad convention, and that was OhioCon 2.
Yeah, pretty sure we went to OhioCon number 2, and yeah, OhioCon 2 had great moments for us, like Mario.
Yep.
And the dog, a lot of Nintendo-related things.
The midget and the prostitute.
The midget and the prostitute playing Settlers of Catan. But the con itself was bad.
Now, Connecticon was not bad. Don't at any point think that we were saying it's bad. We went, we had a good time. But as it'll be apparent while we talk about Connecticon, it does a lot of things well, but it does a lot of things not as well as it could, which any one of them or a few of them in and of themselves would have been fine, but added up, they really detract from the experience a lot. And I guess we mean this more as constructive criticism than anything.
Yeah, here's my two explanations. It's sort of like it's not down to the level where it's like a smelly turd. It's sort of like an unpolished gemstone, and you're sitting there going, polish it, polish it, polish it. Polish it, polish it, polish it. God damn it, why would they polish it?
Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it.
Exactly. And it's also sort of like if you're watching someone play Mario 1 and they run into the first Goomba, and then you watch them and they do it again. Or you're watching someone play Tetris and they keep putting blocks in suboptimal places. You're just going, why aren't you playing a perfect game? I could play a perfect game. So the con, while not so bad that it was a terrible convention, some of the parts of the convention were screwed up in certain ways, which we'll get to the specifics as we go on.
Now, some of them
and we could feel that we could have fixed them.
Mainly because, we go to so many conventions, or we staff or panelists on so many conventions that I guess Connecticon had problems with things that almost every other major con solved a long time ago.
Yep.
And they're simple things that would be almost trivial to fix. One dude in 2 minutes could have fixed a lot of the problems they had.
That's true.
But we'll get to that, and it was a good con.
A lot of it was lack of foresight.
Connecticon has a lot of potential, and I think if they polish it, then it can be a fantastic con.
Yep, I agree.
First off, I was going to go Friday.
Oh, okay.
And because I accidentally got the day off work.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I didn't, because actually we're going to go meet our friend Yuko there and hang out at her table, and her boyfriend Brian, who's also cool. And then on Saturday, we're going to meet our friend Kat. So we had reasons to go other than just the con. And the only reason I didn't go Friday was that my car doesn't have air conditioning, and it was real hot outside.
I think that's a good reason.
Yeah, that, and I didn't actually technically have a place to stay at the con. So while I would have loved to just bum with someone, it would have been interesting, because it's been a long time since I went to a convention without having a hotel room lined up.
Yeah, and while you might have been able to bum with someone, you might have been on a floor, or who knows.
Yeah, plus actually I had a really good day Friday that involved things I shouldn't talk about on the air because they were illegal, but some urban exploration that was most excellent.
Whatever.
Anyway, so Saturday morning we get up and we start driving.
Drive.
Completely uneventful. We get there around what?
We didn't get lost at all. We just went, there it is. We went in.
Yep, because one thing that Connecticon has going for it is that the Connecticut Convention Center is right off of I-84.
And 91.
You can't miss it.
It's like 84, 91, they meet, and the convention center's right there. You can't fail to get in or out of the place onto the freeway in the direction you want to go in, unless you're an idiot.
We had more trouble parking than we did getting there.
Yes, so let's start with the parking. So we drive up. The parking lot's easy to find. The entrance easy to find. And it's a lady, and she says, "Are you here for the anime?" And I'm like, "Yes." She says, $8 all day. And I'm like, "Wonderful." I give her $8. And we go into the parking lot.
Now, at this point, I would like to say that pretend you're listening to an audio drama. And right after Scott said that, there was a dire chord played like, that was important. That will come into play at the end.
Yep. So
Remember
we
that.
paid $8 for parking all day, and we go into the parking lot, and it's kind of hard to find a spot because the signs in the parking lot conflict each other.
Yes, it's a parking garage, but it's not a normal parking garage. It is definitely a stadium-style parking garage, wherein it is designed to have people with flags putting everyone into a space.
Mm-hmm.
Without that, it is a chaotic labyrinth.
And while there were people with flags, there weren't enough people with flags. And we basically drove up and up until you found a place to park, and then you just got the hell out of there as quick as you could.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about all the times we got lost or couldn't find the car in the parking lot because it doesn't really matter. It has nothing to do with the con, but just so you know, the parking lot is interesting. If you ever go to Connecticon,
Or the Connecticut Convention Center.
do not forget where you are parked. There is no way to rectify that situation.
Nope. All right, so then we followed the signs to the convention center. Not hard. And we started walking towards what seemed to be the growing number of cosplayers.
Now, there was some other con going on in the bottom floor of the center.
Something to do with military contractors and Marines.
Yep, and other than that, I mean, the place was absolutely sparse and empty. There was almost no one around.
But it's also new and fancy and shiny. I mean, the first thing I noticed was that there were like these TV displays all over the convention center and like at the doors of all the rooms. And the displays were listing all the events, times, and rooms for the whole con, which...
It's pretty snazzy.
Yeah, usually, you go to a convention or you go somewhere and they have facilities like electronic LED signs or TV monitors, and the convention that you're going to doesn't take advantage of these facilities. And you wonder, does any convention actually take advantage of these things? And the fact that Connecticon actually did use the things the convention center had to offer was like, all right.
Yeah, even though it was really empty. And eventually, we see some people standing around.
And to be honest, those TVs showing all the events weren't that useful.
No, they weren't.
But,
But we see this big stairway, and we hear the convention upstairs. So, all right, there's the con. Let's go. We start walking up, and these people who, I don't know if they were staff or not, but they were not identifiable as staff, started yelling at us and saying, no, you got to go that way.
Well, they said, where's your badge? And I'm like, I want to get one. They said, go out there. Gotta go out there.
They didn't look like staff. They looked like just some guys.
I think it was a security guy. Anyway,
Yeah.
we went outside, and there was a little tiny line, maybe, 20 people.
Yeah, really small.
And we're on these stairs outside, waiting in line. And we're standing and waiting, and we met some people from RIT. What's up, RIT people?
Yep, that was not entirely surprising because RIT is one of the geekiest places in the world.
Yep. So we met our RIT friends, and they waited in line with us. And eventually, they said, all right, now you can go inside.
Yep, no, but they gave us little...
After filling out the form, of course.
Yep, it wasn't stupid like the Philly Wizard World form that asked us really intrusive questions.
Yeah.
About the
How
only-
much money do you plan to spend here?
Well, 0 now, bitches.
Yeah, exactly.
But the one thing was that it had a decent idea where they asked for emergency contact information, which I could see for, kids going to a con and whatnot. But they gave me a little grief when I didn't fill it out. And they were like, why didn't you fill this out? And I had to say, because there's no one who lives anywhere near here who would care if I died.
Yeah, it's like, who are they going to call? Me, who's here.
Yeah, and if I got blown up, odds are Scott gets blown up too.
Yeah, and Emily, who's in Japan.
Yeah.
There's no one else here. Who's he going to call?
Well, I guess our other friends who were also at the con.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the next person you could call is maybe our friend in Albany who doesn't have a car.
Yeah.
So what's he going to do?
But whatever.
My
Now,
parents? You could tell my parents. That would be okay, I
thus,
guess.
we run into the first problem of Connecticon. Now, Connecticon is very expensive compared to other cons. It costs the same as Otakon.
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
It's $50 for the weekend at the door.
And Otakon is $50 if you pre-register. And this thing is way smaller and it's not an insult to say some con is not as awesome and big as Otakon.
Yeah, because no con can be.
That's like saying, going up to some Little League team and saying, you're not as good as the team that won the World Series last year. You saw, that's not really an insult. If I say, you don't play basketball as well as Michael Jordan.
Yep.
You
But-
can't beat up Mike Tyson.
It's $50 at the door.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's $35 for a Saturday only. Now, $35. Anyone who knows anything.
That's a DS game, man. A DS game. And like $5 and change.
but anyone with half a brain knows that the vast majority of ATMs in the world dole out $20 bills.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the price for a Saturday admission was $35. Therefore, on Saturday at a convention like this, when the majority of people buying passes are going to be buying day passes or Saturday and Sunday passes, which also is a multiple of $5 and not $20, you'd better have a whole bunch of $5 bills ready for change.
Yes, anyone who has run enough conventions has the foresight to realize something like that. If I was running that convention or running the registration, I would have had someone go to the bank and get, I don't know, $10,000 in $5 bills.
Or
something, a lot of $5 bills.
Or if that wasn't feasible, I would have either raised the price to $40 or lowered it to $30.
I think lowering it to $30 actually would have been the best solution because it is overpriced.
But then they need tens.
Then they do need tens. But tens are, you would need less of them.
Well, no, you would need the same number of them.
Maybe, yeah.
Captain Math.
But it would cost more money. I don't know. Whatever.
Anyway, but not only they didn't plan for this. Now we got there really, really, really early. Like not many people could have gone through that line before we got to the front of the line, and yet they were out of fives, as in completely out of fives.
There was not a single $5 bill to be had.
They could not register us because they did not have change, and we only had 20s, and they refused to accept credit cards. And I said something like, "Why didn't you? It's $35. Didn't you guys think that everyone's gonna have 20s?" And the staffers were real kind of indignant and like, we didn't have enough. Leave us alone.
Yeah, it's like whenever you point out that someone didn't have foresight, it's like, they think that, because obviously if you're in that position and someone comes up to you and it's like, didn't you see this problem? And it's like, yeah, you have, the 20/20 hindsight. We didn't have foresight. That's not really fair. Get away from me. But we would have had foresight. I could have told you that.
Because, I mean, that's the first thing I think of whenever, a convention or anything, if I were planning it, is quite literally, all right, we're going to charge X. If people are paying in 20s, how do we deal with that?
Yeah, well, at least, when I was taking, you do each part of the convention. When I was thinking about registration, that would come up almost immediately.
Or even when I was thinking pricing, because pricing determines how much money you need.
Yep.
But the only way we got registered at that point was that we combined ours and we paid. And I believe Scott still owes me like $10 because of that.
Maybe. I think they gave me like 5 ones. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was a giant pain because we had to pay together so they wouldn't need 5s for change. But then the people behind us couldn't pay, and I hear the reg line took a long, long time as a result.
And the other part of the reg line was that we went over, and there were we went from the outside line, which was short, to the inside line, which was 2 short lines. And we didn't realize right away because the signs were hidden by people, but one line said pre-reg and one line said reg. And we didn't find out until after a bunch of shifting happened.
Yeah, because the signs were on the bottom of the table where people would always be standing in front of them. So I only noticed it because someone moved and I saw the word pre for a second.
Yep. And then I finally, realized they told us, yeah, you can use either line. I'm like, then why do you have that sign there?
Yeah.
Why? Take it down.
Yeah, it just the registration was just a big blob, and there was still everyone was grumbling because the line was taking forever because they didn't have change for 5s.
Yeah, it was a very small registration line that was still moving much, much too slow. They need to streamline that shit.
Now, then I moved to get my badge. The badge was typical and nice. It was, a good con badge.
Yeah, they took a piece of paper, they laminated it in one of those hot laminating machines, they poked some holes in it. There you go.
Yep, but then we got our goodie bags, and Best Buy was one of the sponsors of Connecticon.
Yeah, this con had a bunch of official sponsors. Who were they?
Best Buy and
Funimation. They're all icons on the badge of all the official sponsors.
Yeah, but the bag, every con has a
Sarge's
bag.
Comics, which is a comic book store.
Like, you go to Otakon, they give you the bag full of goodies. Go to Katsucon, they give you a bag full of goodies. This bag was not a bag full of goodies. It was a yellow plastic Best Buy bag, as in the bag they give you when you buy batteries at a Best Buy.
Yeah, or the alternative was the clear Best Buy bag, which I guess would have been useful in the dealer's room.
Yep, but in the bag, there was nothing but the con book.
There was the con book. There was a piece of paper with changes to the con schedule and such. there was a piece of paper that was an advertisement, and I think there was one more piece of paper for something else that no one cared about.
That was it. There was nothing in the bag, which I don't really care. But
yeah, it's like usually the bag is full of advertisements, and I go, yeah, whatever. But the point is like, hey, you had all these official sponsors, and they didn't fill the bag up with stuff, and there's no. The thing that I really wanted was a mini con book, the one that just you just have a little pocket schedule, but they didn't have that. I had to use the giant con, official program to get the schedule,
which we'll talk about in a moment.
Which we will, yes.
But the other thing was that the bags they felt so cheap, and almost everyone just took the bag, took the con book out, threw the bag away because it was a cheap, nasty bag. Unless Best Buy forced them to, they really shouldn't have bothered.
Yeah.
That just wasn't worth it.
I mean, it's like you got someone to sponsor the bag, but you didn't get anyone to put anything in the bag to make it worth carrying a bag.
Also, the bag was a flimsy plastic Best Buy bag.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
But whatever. That doesn't detract from the con. Now, then we open up the book. Now, the convention book, had been talked up to us at Anime Next by Connecticon staffers.
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole book is full color, and apparently it didn't cost him very much to make the whole book full color.
Yeah, the guy was like, oh, for only a few $100s more, we got a full color con book, so we did it. We're awesome.
Now, the one thing I wonder, and this is pure speculation because I don't know about Connecticon's fiscal practices, but I wonder if the it's only a few $100, let's do it policy applied to multiple things, and maybe that's the reason why this convention is so expensive.
Maybe.
But the book itself is full color, and it's printed very well, but it was put together pretty poorly.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean any offense to whoever designed it, but go to any other con and look at their con book.
There's a reason, first of all, the other con books print their books in black and white because A, they are bigger, B, they have more information and more content, and C, they have a lot more ads. Basically, the page count of this is low, and
It's not that low. It's big.
well, okay, it's not that low.
All the information is in here. The problem is that one, there are mistakes in it. Like one very specifically is our friend Yuko, who is she was a panelist and an artist and everything there, and she's a webcomic artist. They had her name wrong in the book. But, minor things like that happen.
Another thing is that there's schedules for everything in this. And they separated the schedules, and the schedules are printed in a way I like. They're easy to read and figure out what's going on when. The thing is that they printed all the schedule. The schedules take up a lot of room. So there's like 2 or 3 pages of panels and workshop schedule. Then there's 2 or 3 pages of board gaming schedule. 4 pages of board gaming schedules. So it's like you have to find out what you want to do and then look at the schedule. It's really hard to, I like to see at 1 o'clock I could be doing this or this or this or this or this, as opposed to saying, what do I want to do? And then what time is it now?
It was it was really kind of confusing, and not just to us, because several of the people who were with us at the con or we talked to expressed various amounts of frustration with how it was set up.
The way a con schedule has to be, and specifically a pocket schedule, because no one's can keep whipping out this giant book at a con. They need a little tiny pocket thing. You have to be able to whip it out and say, it's 1 o'clock. What's happening at the con right now? And there it is.
Yep.
That is the perfect con schedule. This does not function as that at all. Second of all, it's like you can see in the schedule the names of the events, but then to actually find a description of the event, you have to go sifting through this giant book, which is not the greatest.
Though at least the actual descriptions are pretty good. I didn't read them too thoroughly, but
yeah, and they have a big section like even describing every board game in the gaming room, and all the guests have a big paragraph and a picture,
and every single anime they showed, they had a picture and a big paragraph, and they obviously put a lot of effort into the book, but
yeah, it was just tricky to find any one of those things. But once you found it, well, there it was.
So I guess my suggestions for this are, 1, does it really need to be color, and is it worth the money? And 2,
even if it's $1, if the color doesn't do anything for you, why do it just because?
Well, it depends. I mean, $1, it's a cost-benefit analysis, and I think they need to look at that. But more importantly, have a separate pocket schedule, even if it's just a piece of paper with small text on it.
Yeah, I recommend a piece of cardboard that folds in half. That's the best.
Yeah, because and look at other conventions like Otakon or Katsucon does a really good job with their schedules, and look at what they do, and then put that in your con book instead of the format you use, because it was just really not the best.
Yeah. Yep.
But anyway, we flipped through that, and we saw, hey, there's an anime club panel right when we arrived. Basically, a how to run an anime club panel.
Right, went to the bathroom.
Yeah, I went to the bathroom first.
And also the map in the book was actually really good.
Except that it was wrong about where the food was.
That's correct. It was wrong about where the food was, but everything else about the book, the map was correct and good.
Yes, but we saw this panel that was right when we were ready to go on how to run an anime club, how to start an anime club, which I thought would be interesting because I run, along with my friend Scott Johnson, that panel.
Not me.
Yeah, the other Scott. Yeah, I think
He's not on this show.
I think Anime World Order got a little confused, and I think they thought that me and Scott of Geeknights were in New Type, when in fact it was me and Scott of Not Geeknights who were in New Type.
That's correct.
But anyway,
I'll be in New Type soon enough.
those of us, me and the other Scott, run that exact panel.
And they'll say positive things about me because they only say positive things.
At every large con. I mean, we run it at Otakon. We ran it at OhioCon, Anime Central, Katsucon. We run it everywhere. It's like it's our thing. And I was curious, all right, these people are doing their own. Let's see how it goes. And it started late, and then the girl doing it starts explaining that she was kind of thrown into it at the last minute. She was a staffer, and they just kind of needed to fill in the schedule, so they made up this panel and threw her on it, and she didn't really know a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, she
right,
knew something because she did run an anime club at I forget where she said she was from.
True, but after
let me go look up her panel actually in the book.
All right, but while you do that, after the second questioner show, so I answered one of the questions that someone had because she was doing a pretty good job, and I give her credit, especially for being thrown into this at the last minute. But she gave dangerously illegal advice as to how to run an anime club. There was a specific point at which she suggested that you show some anime and charge some money to see it. And at that point, I couldn't just sit there and watch, and I had to stand up and say that that's super illegal. You can get into super trouble. You can't do it. And then I explained who I was, and then basically the rest of the panel was people asking me questions as opposed to asking her. And it was a pretty good panel. I wouldn't mind coming back to run the panel at Connecticon if they need someone to do it.
The panelist was Brittany Davis.
Yep. I mean, really, I hand it to her for pulling off that panel on no notice with very little preparation or information.
Yeah, but we ended up answering a lot of the questions there.
Yeah. I don't know what else I can say, but it was interesting because OhioCon and Otakon 4 years ago were the two other cons where I went to an anime club panel and the person who was supposed to run it wasn't there, or no one was really ready to run it. And this was the first time I didn't just stand up and try to take it over immediately.
Yeah, I think it is that imagine if you were going to give a panel on physics and then Stephen Hawking shows up in the audience. It's like, what do you do?
I would say, all right, Stephen, this is your panel. I'm going to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, it's that's what it was like. It's like she was trying to give a panel and then, me and Rim showed up in the audience. What are you going to do?
Yeah, but actually, a lot of people in the panel seemed really interested in what we had to say. And at the end, they all requested our little business card. So I'm curious if we'll get a lot of questions.
Maybe some of them are listening to Geeknights right now.
Yeah. Also, at the panel, there was one guy who asked a question that in all my years of running club summits, no one has ever asked anything even close to it. And at some point, I would love to interview this dude.
I give him the award for best question ever.
To sum it up real briefly.
At a club, at an anime club panel.
This guy is a trucker, as in drives trucks for a living.
But he has a master's degree in aerospace engineering from MIT.
And he's a big anime fan, and he knows a bunch of other truckers who are big anime fans.
At least, Adult Swim fans.
Yeah. He wanted to form an anime club for truckers, and some way where truckers on the road could meet up at rest stops and such while they're trucking and watch anime and talk about anime. And that was the first time I didn't have any great advice for someone, and I've been thinking on it long and hard because I really want to help these guys out. These guys seem really cool.
The only advice I could really give them is A, use the internet a lot.
Yep.
B, maybe put signs up in truck stops if that's possible. He when I said that, he's like, "Have you ever been in a truck stop?" And I'm like, "No, not really."
I've been in some.
I've been kinda in some. Like those little travel centers on the highway.
Those are no. A truck stop has lounges and showers. I've showered in truck stops.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. And then What was the last suggestion I had for him? Oh, right. Get a projector and put the anime on the side of your truck.
Yep.
And sit outside on little lawn chairs.
But I just thought that was really interesting, and now I am prepared to answer that question if anyone ever asks it again.
Watch, next time someone's going to come out and be like, yeah, I'm in the Antarctic expedition. How do I start an anime club?
Oh, I can handle that. I just couldn't handle the truckers because...
Get the penguins to watch with you. All right.
Yeah. So after that, we wandered around a bit. We met our friend Kat, who showed up a little later, and we hung out with her. She's an awesome person.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went into the dealer's room.
The dealer's room.
It was a typical Anime Club dealer, or Anime Con dealer's room.
There were a lot of dealers who were at Anime Next, and I knew because I was like, I saw you at Anime Next. What are you doing here?
Yep. Our friends Luke and Gabby, who run a big anime store in Rochester, New York, were actually there.
Yep.
Which was a total surprise. Like, we're walking, and suddenly I hear... oh my God. And I look and I go, oh my God. And
there they are. We didn't know the other guy was coming.
And it was several minutes of, hey, what's up? I don't know. Oh my God, we're at a con. Yeah.
Yeah, we both went to the same con without knowing. Holy crap.
Also, all the big name webcomics that were at the con, because this is a webcomic convention, were set up in the dealer's room instead of in the artist colony.
Yeah, the artist colony was a hallway of tables as opposed to a room of tables, which kind of worked. And all the big webcomics guys weren't in the artist colony. They were in the dealer's room at tables.
Yeah, I mean,
I wasn't sure if the con gave them those tables or if they bought them or whatever, but that's how it was.
Yep, not to sound elitist, but it was definitely all of the well-known, major, acclaimed webcomics were in the dealer's room.
Yep, the first guy I think we saw was Dr. McNinja guy.
Yep, which we didn't have much to say to him other than your comic's great.
Yeah.
I really like Dr. McNinja a lot.
I like Dr. McNinja a lot too, but, he was a normal, cool guy, and we're normal Dr. McNinja readers. What do we have to say to him?
Yep, so we went around all the webcomics. A lot of them we'd already met or talked to at Mocha, so we didn't really need to say hey again.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I seen you. I'm not going to waste your time.
Though, we had a fun bit with Greg Dean of Real Life Comics.
Yeah, see, Greg Dean of Real Life Comics, I've been reading, I'm going to be honest, Real Life Comics isn't my absolute favorite webcomic. Not every single comic makes me laugh and roll all over the floor.
Yeah, I got to admit, I liked it a lot more several years ago.
Yep. But it's still a good comic, and I've been reading it for a long time because it's never been, some comics, they just, they get bad and then you stop reading them. Real Life has been good enough, on average throughout the years, so just keep reading it.
Yep, it's got a lot of momentum, a lot of history, and it's a good comic.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And it always, it kind of follows the guy's life, too. So as his life changes, so does the comic. And since we're slightly younger than him, I think, then, it kind of fits our lives as well. Anyway.
Scott had this shirt.
I had this shirt when I was a freshman in college, which is about when I started reading Real Life. So that was in 2000.
Good God.
Maybe 2001, maybe. I bought a shirt from Real Life Comics. Now, at the time, Real Life was much smaller. It was like still a Keen Spot, or possibly not even Keen Spot yet. And the shirt was from Cafe Press. And it has characters on it that aren't in the comic anymore, doing things that the comic is no longer about.
Now, it's a really good shirt, though now it is faded, stained, somewhat smelly, and generally wrinkled.
Yeah, it's a kind of shirt you wear to bed. It's not a kind of shirt you wear around. Of course, I did wear it around at many conventions, and it gets a lot of compliments. Like that shirt and my new Boas's shirt tend to get mad compliments.
Yeah, hint, hint, remake the shirt, hint, hint.
Yeah.
Make it like a vintage tee or something.
Something like that. Higher quality, I'll buy it, because now you signed this one, so I'm not really going to get my sweat all over it.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is I went up to the guy, and the first thing I said to him, which was kind of asshole-ish, was, how long I've been reading your comic? And he was like, what, 2 days? And I'm like, no, you got to check this out. And I went, and I took out the shirt, and he was like, God damn. Holy shit. I was like, when was the last time you saw one of these? And he's like, well, I got one in my closet. I'm like, I know you got one in your closet.
He was just, of all the webcomic artists we talked to at conventions, other than the ones we know really, really well, he was probably one of the most personable and just, hey, what up?
Yeah, he was very normal, sociable, and it was cool to meet him at, such a con like Connecticon because he's from freaking, California. So he came all the way across the country for this. So I figure, hey, and then we actually had a lot to relate to him with, talking about podcasting. He does a lot of podcasting, internet radio stuff. He's into that. So, we talked about that for a few minutes, and then we parted ways.
Yep, and we didn't actually go back into the dealer's room because I did want to go back and talk to some other people there, but whatever.
Yeah, we pretty much did all the dealing that was necessary at the buy one manga, get two free table.
Yeah, buy one, get two free. I brought a pile of Slayers manga.
Oh, did I buy manga? Holy crap. We went to Anime Next. It was $5 DVDs. We went to Connecticon, buy one manga, get two free. But actually, the thing was, it wasn't all manga. Buy one, get two free. That would have been Scott Goes Home Poor.
Yeah, no, that would have been.
I would have been like,
Scott, that would have been Scott drives home in his car, Rim drives home in the U-Haul we rented.
Exactly. I would have been like, I already have all of Eagle, but you know what?
Might as well buy it again so I have a lender copy and a keeping copy.
Hey, you know what? That Lupin manga, they got in that GTO, they've got 30 volumes of that stuff.
How much money will I save if I buy it all?
It only cost me, $100 for 30 volumes, huh? Anyway, no, it was only on CPM manga because CPM they laid off all their staff, if you recall, in news from a few weeks ago. So, yeah, they're kind of going out of business, so their manga was on the super discount, as well as some other mangas.
Now, it was a lot of bad manga, a lot of great manga, a lot of manga that's bad, but I like anyway, like Geo Breeders, which is just terrible, but I love it.
Yeah, I forgot exactly which manga I bought. Oh, I bought some manhwa, which is Hard Boiled Angel, because I got volume 1 of that for cheap. I figured, why not get 2 and 3? I got Next World, which was an overpriced Tezuka manga from Dark Horse, but at buy one, get 2 free, it was no longer overpriced. And I got Fist of the Blue Sky, I think. It was by the same publisher who published First President of Japan in the U.S., and it looks to be sort of a Fist of the North Star, but also Yakuza type of thing. More of the Yakuza action.
I like Yakuza.
I like Yakuza a lot, so I picked it up.
So then we went out from there, hung around with Kat for a bit, and then we went over to the gaming room, which if you want to hear about the gaming experiences at Connecticon, beyond the fact that they were awesome and well done, and I give mad props, check out yesterday's episode.
Yes, this is the point at which I played Puerto Rico and Rim went to his Uber comic panel. Yep.
Now, Connecticon has a thing that me and Kat went to this because Scott was playing Puerto Rico and Yuko was still busy. But their shtick, the special thing they do is that all the webcomic artists are there. Like, anyone who does a webcomic can become a guest at Connecticon. And they do a huge Uber webcomics panel where every webcomic artist they have there gets on stage at once. And I had heard very mixed reviews of this concept, but most of them have been very positive. So I decided, all right, in the interest of journalism, I will sit there and cover this. Now, the first thing, which I talked about yesterday, but I'll mention briefly, is that there were an infinite number of Nintendo DSs there, and there was an entire meta conversation / simulcast of the entire panel going on in PictoChat. It was insane. Beyond that, the panel I was really, really underwhelmed with, which I don't want to say this, but it really was kind of boring, and luckily I have a lot of constructive criticism on how to fix this. Now, it was a lot of webcomic artists. I think after I talk about it, I'll say who was all up there, because I think I'd like to go through the list of all the webcomics that were at the con and talk about them a bit. But they had a whole bunch of people up there, half of whom were really, really funny and personable and had a funny joke or a story for just about any question anyone asked. Half of them were real quiet, whatever. Some of them said things that made the crowd get a little antsy, or no one really booed, but there were definitely some grumbles after a few things some comic artists said.
Oh, could you give an example of a grumbling comment?
Oh, why, I have a perfect example that I'll talk about later.
Awesome!
When it becomes relevant, because that was one of the few embarrassing things that has ever happened to me in my life. I mean,
wow, I can't really possibly be embarrassed. Like, even if that happened to me, I would have been like,
Oh, no, I wasn't embarrassed, but it was an embarrassing moment.
Uh-huh.
Like, it was a thing that could cause embarrassment. It was
so someone else would have been embarrassed.
It is rare where I will anger someone unintentionally. Like, if I want someone to be angry, I make them angry. If I'm in a political argument and I want to pull an Ann Coulter, I'll make someone angry. But I made someone angry unintentionally.
But you don't make them angry.
Well, no,
it's that they get angry.
Fine. I create a situation wherein another person of reasonable intelligence will likely become perturbed.
There you go.
Anyway.
That's the one.
Now, the way they ran the panel was everyone sat up there, and they had a couple mics, and they had a guy who was kind of an MC, but he really just kind of stayed away. And they'd take a question from the crowd, or from a predefined list of questions, and they'd ask it to the webcomics panel. And then they would pass the mic around, and every single person would answer it, sometimes at length. Then they would ask
Didn't
another
some
question.
of the people just go like, "Yep, what he said. Yep, what he said."
No, in fact, almost everyone answered everything with a funny quip. Like, well, I forget all the questions, but there was something like, "What motivates you?" or whatever. And one guy's like, "Cocaine." Just, I can't really get all the humor that was at this thing out, but there were many hilarious moments, and many of these people would do very well to run their own panels on unrelated topics and just be funny at a con. Or say, be on a podcast. Hint, hint.
Yeah.
But the fact remains that despite the funniness, there was a lot of meh and a lot of just shuffling time as the mic got passed around. And when they took questions from the audience, there were a lot of questions I would have wanted to ask, but I couldn't because you couldn't really ask a question to an individual person, or if you asked any difficult question, that would kill the panel because now every one of them is going to answer it and is going to take forever. And it was just kind of unmoderated and chaotic. And what they should have done, this is my professional opinion, they should have had a master of ceremonies, and in addition to that, a couple of guys who were question takers. Now, the master of ceremonies should have stood up front and moderated. And the way I would have done it, now there are other ways, people could disagree, this is just the way I would have run the panel if I were in charge of it and I were staff at Connecticon. I would have had all the webcomic artists up because I like the idea of the Uber panel, of everyone is on this panel. It's the giant thing. They made a big deal about it.
Yeah, that's what attracts people to the panel. That's what brings it to main events instead of just a normal panel room. So you can't really give that up or else the point is lost.
Now, one, the MC should have memorized who everyone was and either introduce them all or have
The
them
MC didn't know who everyone was.
The MC didn't bother with that. They just kind of moved the mics around on their own. So it didn't matter. I'm just saying what I would do. I'm really not covering exactly what they did because it was kind of meh. And because actually when they started introducing themselves, they said their name. They didn't say what comic they did, which didn't work because while I know the names of all the comics I know, I don't know what your comic is if I don't read your comic.
Yeah, so everyone really should have said their name, what comic they do now, what comics they've done.
Oh, they self-corrected on that after
okay.
about 4 people. But I would have then had an MC and taken questions from the audience, and I would have had a laundry list of backup questions in case the audience didn't have anything to ask.
And always ask the most interesting question on the list.
Now, what I would have done then is I would have taken a question from the audience, and then I would have given it to 1, 2, or 3 of the people on the panel. And I would have chosen semi-randomly and uniformly, except for cases when either A, an artist signaled that they have a really good story to answer this question, or someone had already answered it a million times and I wasn't going to have them say the same thing, or, things like that. But like, say someone asked, where do you get your inspiration for webcomics? I would have said, all right, Brian Clevenger, what do you have to say about this? Blah, 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 blah. All right, and I'm trying to think of someone who someone I don't know. Chris Malone, how about you? Handle this question. Or,
yeah, just look at the con guide. There's a billion webcomic artists in there.
Yeah, but I would have taken each question and handed it to a handful of artists. That way you could get more questions out. I also would have accepted specific questions to specific artists as long as they were interesting or if they could have had relevance to where then I could pick another person to answer the question further, even if they weren't related to it.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, I'm sure that whatever answer one artist would give, that there would be many tangents spewing from their answer that other artists would love to jump onto.
Yeah, and you let them go with that, and you make sure there's a lot of humor in there.
As long as it stays interesting. As soon as it's not interesting and people stop laughing and stop enjoying themselves, then you push it.
Yeah, the basic point is that I would get someone who's very skilled at being an MC or a moderator and have them moderate it in whatever way they see fit. I kind of gave a brief overview of how I would have because that's what I do when I run panels like that. But as they just should have had someone who's experienced at that to run it, and I think it would have been a lot smoother, it would have been a lot more entertaining, and overall would have been a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, the panel only has so many minutes to it, total. So
And just so much of the time was wasted passing the mic around to everyone, and a lot of people gave funny answers, but a lot of questions, like all the funny answers were taken, and people would either try to give another funny answer, which would fall over flat, or give a boring, serious answer that no one cared about, or talk at length about a semi-unrelated topic. And then when they would stop talking, there'd be silence for a while, and then someone would say, yeah, and then the panel would get back on track.
So, as soon as I finished playing the game of Puerto Rico, I walked in the hallway, pulled out my cell phone, and attempted to call Rim. And who was standing right in front of me?
Me, about to call Scott.
Oh, look at that.
Now, at this point, I forget exactly what we did. I think we went to get
starving.
Food. Yeah, we went to get food. We finally ran into Yuko, who we'd been trying to see for the whole con, but she was busy.
We ran into... Oh, you did... Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, she was helping Brian with something, so we didn't get to see her yet. So we ran by her artist colony table. We then immediately ran away to get food.
Mm-hmm.
That was an adventure. We went out. We couldn't find the car.
First I went and asked the guy in the parking lot, can I leave and come back with this parking ticket? And he said yes. So,
dun, dun, dun.
So we got in the car. After we found the car,
now
I remembered that I parked in D2. R2, D2.
Yep. We didn't go to R2 or C3 or anything, but...
Yeah, we went to D2, and the thing is we couldn't find D2 because the signs in the parking lot lied.
Like, actually, they were wrong. There was a sign that said D this way and another sign that said D this other way, and one of those signs was not correct.
And we ended up at the complete opposite end of the parking lot from D, and then we ended up at the correct D, and we found the car.
But that has nothing to do with Connecticon, and I can't blame the con for that. That is just the convention center.
Yep.
Now, luckily, our friend Kat
He died.
is somewhat of a native, so she was able to direct us to food, which meant we had to get on the freeway.
Yes, near the convention center, there is very little to eat, so a lot of people ended up eating the convention center overpriced food.
Which, now, Otakon has finally solved this problem. They theoretically...
Well, we think they're going to solve this problem.
Well, the thing, I trust what Jim Vowell said, and I trust everything I've read, that supposedly at Otakon this year, the food at the convention is going to be good, affordable, and Asian.
Mm-hmm.
Now...
why would anyone eat it when you could walk across the skywalk to the mall? Why?
What if it's the same price or only a tiny bit more expensive, but you don't have to go anywhere?
That might do it.
That
it would have to be as good, because there's good food over there.
Yeah, so we'll see. But the thing is, this con either didn't have enough clout with the convention center to demand something like that, or they just didn't even think about it.
And you weren't allowed to bring in outside food.
Yeah, now, theoretically at Otakon and all these other cons, you're also not allowed to bring outside food in, but they had prominent signs all over the place. You cannot bring food in.
And security guards preventing you from bringing in food. Otakon, you quote, can't bring in food. People bring in freaking food.
Now, keep in mind, this wasn't Connecticon security. This was convention center security.
Yep, nothing to do with Connecticon. Just convention center.
Yep, but the thing
I
is...
think they were anal because it's a brand new convention center, and they're trying to make their money back on it.
Yeah, it was $6 for a burger. Not even a cheeseburger, just a burger. It was $4 for a hot dog.
A shitty hot dog.
And the fact is, many of the people at the con didn't have cars or couldn't drive or whatever, and they were really forced to eat that food, and I felt bad for them because I know they don't have a lot of money.
Yep. I mean, especially after you pay so much money to get to the con, the registration. So...
Yeah, but then we ate our food and we came back. And then we hung out with Yuko at her Artist Alley table for a while and chilled and talked about webcomics and fun. And we looked around in the artist colony, which, sad to say, was really kind of lackluster. I expected a lot more from a webcomics con.
Yeah, I mean, there was the same girl I always see who has the cute buttons, and there was a guy making some statues, and he was really good at making statues, but to be honest, his painting of the statues was... while not crappy and much better than I could ever do. It wasn't as good as some of the work I've seen from some of the people I know.
Yeah, it really was a far cry from like Katsucon or Otakon's Artist Colony or Artist Alley.
It was basically just one hallway of tables with a manga library at the end of it. And the manga library wasn't anything special. It was just a manga library.
Yeah, I just expected such a bigger Artist Alley, and I'm surprised it was so small. And also...
You figure for a webcomics panel that like all these aspiring webcomicists would be in there, but... not so many, really.
Well, I think what really hurt it, too, was that for whatever design or reason it was, all the big name, like, well-known, I don't want to say good, but just well-known popular comics were in the dealer's room. And it seems like all the unknown or second-tier or smaller comics, for the most part, were in the artist colony. So... all the people who wanted to talk to webcomic people were hanging out in the dealer's room all day.
It's funny how at Otakon, the tables for an artist alley are arranged much more like a colony, yet it's called Artist Alley. And here, where they're arranged literally almost in an alley, they call it the Artist Colony.
Katsucon was both. It had the hallway leading to the artist alley was full of tables along the wall, and then there was a room full of normal shaped tables.
Wow.
Yeah, Katsucon is a big artist alley.
I like big artist alleys. That's becoming the best part of the con, that most of the cons I go to, because it's the part that has the interesting new stuff. And the dealers' rooms are just, I've seen half these dealers before, or I've played all these games before, I've heard all these panels before.
Now, I'd like to go through, because they have all the webcomics here, and I don't want to sound elitist. I'm not making fun of anyone. I just want to go through and, note the comics that I know and the comics that I'd never heard of.
All right.
All right. Now, 8-Bit Theater was there. Awesome.
I read that one all
I read that daily.
Yep. Even when it doesn't update.
All Roses Have Thorns.
Never heard of it.
Am I Immortal?
Never heard of it.
And Then You Die.
Never heard of it.
Apple Geeks. I don't
heard
read
of it, but don't read it.
But I've heard of it. I know it's really popular. They were in the dealer's room. Now, I'll also note at any point if there's an exception where there's a well-known or really popular comic that wasn't in the dealer's room and that was in the artist colony. Banana Chips.
Never heard of it.
Blue and Blonde.
Never heard of it.
Chugworth.
I think I've heard of that.
I've read it. It's all right. The art's really good. I really don't like the comic so much, but it's not bad. It's not my bag.
Yep.
Clone Manga.
Never heard of it.
Comedity.
No.
Dead End Strippers and Box and Socket.
Nope.
Devil's Panties.
I've heard of that kinda, but I've never actually read it, I don't think.
Dominic Deegan.
I've heard of him, but I don't read it.
I've read it. It's also not my bag so much, but the guy who does it is awesome. Like, the guy who does it, in my personal opinion, is so much more awesome than his comic is. But that's not to say his comic's bad. Just once again, it's not something I read.
Mm-hmm.
Fallen.
Hey, I know the person who makes that.
Yeah, Yuko.
But I don't read it.
I read it. It's actually
Other people read it.
Yeah, it's very popular, especially considering it hasn't updated so often lately because she's been busy with school.
Mm-hmm.
Flip Side.
Never heard of it.
Turning Pages. GU Comics.
Never heard of it.
Hooky Dookie Panic.
Never heard of it.
I'm just saying.
Never heard of it.
Instant Classic.
Hey, I know the guy who does that too.
Yeah, it's Brian.
Yeah, but I don't read that either.
Yeah, but we hung out with him at the con. We're probably going to get him on the show a bunch of times because we have a lot of interesting arguments with him.
He won our theme contest.
Yes, for anyone who doesn't know.
So get working. Whip, whip. Yeah, mule.
Classic Bry, or Classic Bree, as I like to joke, does Instant Classic, and he's also the guy who designed that awesome banner that we're going to put on the top of our website at some point.
Get working.
All right, turning pages again. Kitsune Kiki.
Never heard of it.
Mac Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard of Mac Hall, but I don't read that either.
Yep. Mine's Bigger.
Never heard of
Monster
it.
Guy.
Never heard of
Mystic
it.
Revolution.
Nope.
No Fourth Wall
Nope.
Break. Paradox Lost.
Nope.
Press Start Comics.
Nope.
Punks and Nerds.
Nope.
Questionable Content.
I've heard of that, but I don't read it.
It's awesome. I read it regularly.
All right.
Real Life Comics.
Hey, I met that guy, and he signed my shirt that I had that was real old, that we just talked about it.
Yep. My favorite bit. No, I have too many favorite bits. I'd have to do a whole show on that.
Mm-hmm.
Rob and Elliot.
I don't know them, but I remember seeing them in the Artist Alley.
Runners.
Never heard of it.
I gotta say, Sean Wang, the guy who does this comic, he was sitting on the end. He was like the first guy introduced in the webcomics panel, and he seemed really quiet, like he didn't say much. But then when he finally said something, he was really funny and awesome. So I just want to say he was kind of like that white-dressed Yakuza guy in that Simpsons episode.
Oh, I love that white Yakuza guy. That's one of my favorite bits.
Staccato.
All right, I never read this, and I never heard of it, but I was informed that the funny shirts, the ones with the Katamari balls that say, "This is how I roll," and the one that I have, which is a picture of a Nintendo cartridge that says, "Blow me," these guys make those shirts, apparently.
Yes, you should probably check out the comic.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff Sucks.
Nope.
VG Cats, everyone reads.
I don't actually read it, but I read it when someone sends me a link.
Yep, and Wasteland.
Never heard of it.
Now, the one cool thing, and it's both a pro and a con of Connecticon, that they put everyone, anyone who's a webcomic artist is a guest. Anyone who's a webcomic artist is on the Uber Comic panel.
You could draw a stick figure webcomic and get on the webcomic panel.
And it's awesome because I love this idea of inclusion and that, it's a chance for people who maybe have a not-so-well-known comic to get themselves well-known because if they're good, they'll explode. I mean, that's just the way webcomics work.
Mm-hmm.
It just surprised me that, I am really into webcomics. I'm constantly looking for new ones to read. And
I'm not constantly looking, but I read the ones that I read every day, and I like it when new amazing ones fall into my lap. The problem is I'm kind of reading like the cream of the crop with like Penny Arcade and Boasis and such. So it's really hard for new ones to make it through, especially because they have to compete with stuff that I don't read anymore, like Bad Boys of Computer Science.
yeah, but I guess it's just that I'd never heard of more than half of these comics, despite the fact that I'm a massive, massive fan of webcomics. And I wonder if it's due to the fact that the comics that made it big early are just these juggernaut behemoths that everyone reads, and maybe there's just no room, or I don't know. I got to think about
Maybe
this.
people just don't look for new webcomics that
Or
much
maybe
anymore.
it's hard to find a new webcomic unless you go to those sites where they're all linked together. Like You Damn Kid has a bunch of other comics on the site, or Dumbrella, or things like that.
Yeah, it's just really hard to make the thing is, a lot of the good webcomic artists are already making webcomics, and they're not making new ones. They're making more of the same comic. I mean, Penny Arcade, they just keep making Penny Arcade for years and years and years. And there aren't that many new webcomic artists, because it broke out where there was, all of a sudden there's a new thing. So every webcomic artist in the world that didn't know they were webcomic artists yet, they all broke out simultaneously. So there were hundreds and hundreds of webcomics. But the rate at which new webcomic artists are generated is years and years and years for actually good ones to come through the line.
But anyway, I hate to push us along, but we've gone a long time talking about this con, and we still got a lot to say.
Okay, so let's move on.
Yeah, we might have to cover the rest of it tomorrow.
No, we'll finish it.
All right, anyway. After that, we're going to skip the next 4 hours of the con.
Because we played Age of Steam.
We played Age of Steam in that 4 hours. If you want to hear about that, listen to yesterday's show.
And then we went back to the Artist Alley to hang out some more.
Yep. Now, at this point, we were going to leave the con. Our friend Kat had already left because she found a ride home. And our friend Yuko and Brian, they were out getting dinner or something. So I called them. They're like, hey, we're eating. I was like, hey, we're going to leave soon. And, oh, we miss you. Oh, we'll see you soon. Then I go and meet Scott because he was still cleaning up the Age of Steam game while I was going to see what was going on with our friends. And then we decided that we might as well stick around until they get back and hang out and then leave because we're in no rush.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to say, after those two got back and we hung out in the artist colony for the rest of the night,
we had some good times.
That was probably the highlight of the con.
Probably, yeah. Just the part I remember the most besides playing Age of Steam.
Just me, Scott, Brian, and Yuko hanging out, talking about everything.
We met lots of people walking by, and the thing is when people came by, I tried to strike up conversations with them, about, because you were promoting their comic and our podcast.
Yep, because actually Yuko had a table and in the artist colony, but she didn't really bring much to do with it, so she offered it to us to use.
Yep, so we were promoting our podcast and their comic, and I asked people, do you listen to podcasts, and are you going to Otakon? And I expected people to say, what's a podcast? Hell's yes, I'm going to Otakon. The thing is that pretty much everyone said, yeah, I listen to a few podcasts, or, oh, yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts, or, yeah, something, they definitely were into podcasting, and, no, I can't go to Otakon, or what's Otakon, or where is Otakon?
More people didn't know what Otakon was, or where it was, or anything about it, than knew about it.
But they all knew podcasting, and I said, yeah, if you want to listen to us two schmucks talk, you can go to that website. And the guy was like, oh, I love listening to Geeks Talk.
I have a theory, and I'm going to talk about this in depth someday. Maybe someone should remind me.
A hypothesis.
When I forget. Yes. Well, theory in the colloquial sense, hypothesis in the scientific sense.
Exactly.
But it seems to me, based on all of my anecdotal evidence and all my many years of going to cons, that there are circles of people, like in Burning Wheel, who go to certain sets of cons. Because for the longest time, I went to Otakon, Anime Central, Otakon, Anime Central. And a lot of the same people went to both. So I met people at Anime Central, and then I'd hang out with them at Otakon, and then I'd hang out with them again at the next Anime Central. Then I discovered that Katsucon is in the same circle. When I went to Katsucon, almost everyone I talked to goes to Otakon. A lot of people were
well, because that's in close geographical proximity to Otakon. So.
Well, true. And UberCon, a lot of people who go to Otakon and all these cons go to UberCon.
Mm-hmm.
But almost no one who goes to like Connecticon and Anime Next and all these other circle of cons goes to Otakon or Katsucon. And I'm really not sure exactly if it's distance or time, and I've got to sit down and think about it and look at maps and see if I can come up with any rationale for this, but it's like the people who go to all the small cons don't go to the big cons.
I think that it's really just a geographic thing. Like, you could put blobs on the map as to where the fan populations live, and then you can see, this percentage of that one goes to these cons, and,
My only argument against that is that Anime Central is definitely in the Otakon Katsucon circle.
Yeah.
And that is fuck far away.
Well, at least the people that you talk to. I mean, there are thousands of people at these things. There's no way that you can actually figure that out. It's just,
hence, it was the weak hypothesis based on anecdotal evidence. And I'm gonna I think I'll do a search for the truth to try to figure this out.
Maybe. All right. Anyway, some other funny things happened while we were sitting there hanging out.
Yep, we met...
Some annoying fanboys came up, and they bothered us, and we got them to go away.
Yep, we discovered the best way to promote Geeknights. We were sitting there, and we were talking to Rusty Holler, he was a guest at the con, and he did all sorts of cool things. I'm not going to try to read this.
Yeah, he was a comic artist, and he makes some comic called Ace and Queenie, which I looked at it, and, the art was pretty good. I mean, he's a good artist, but it's sort of an anthropomorphic thing published in Furlough, so make of that what you will.
But the thing is, he totally surprised us with his awesome knowledge of anime, and we had a really good discussion about all the old school awesome anime and what's good and what's
at first
bad.
it's like, oh, it's a comic artist who draws something furry. Oh, wait a minute. He wants to talk about all sorts of awesome Tezuka stuff that I don't know. Yes.
Yeah.
Teach me in your wise ways of the Tezuka things that I do not have yet.
Yep. Now, the cool thing is, we were talking to him, and we're, loud, boisterous people, and he was pretty loud too. People walking by would stop and start listening to us. And then once they started listening to us, we could impress upon them that, hey, we do a show, you can listen to this all the time. And that got more people interested in Geeknights than anything we've ever done at a con.
They were like, oh, I was so entertained just standing here listening to you two guys talk, and now I can do it 4 days a week.
Yeah, one person even said something along those lines, like, I would listen to this.
Yep.
And I was like, well, now you can. Here's a website.
Yep. And they were like, oh. And people like, usually you give us, it's like when someone gives me a piece of paper and says, go check this out, I'm like, yeah. And obviously I know that they know that I'm probably not gonna. And, I think that's why I don't hand things out, because I always figure people are going to be like, yeah, and not actually go see it, and it's a waste of time. But it seemed like everyone who I gave a flyer or whatever was genuinely interested in...
Yep, like most of the flyers we gave away were because people asked us specifically how they could listen, or how they could get in touch with us, or if we had a business card or a flyer.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'd ask, like, can I have one of those?
Yeah, it's like they thought it wasn't free.
Also, we got some compliments on it, because also Yuko, who we were hanging out with, she did the art for it. I finally uploaded it to the server, so anyone who wants to promote Geeknights in any con you go to, you can just print out that flyer, make some copies, cut it up, give it out.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to, we don't care, but yeah.
Now, another funny thing happened while we were there.
Okay, now, I was talking about the Uber webcomics panel.
While we were in the Artist Alley.
Yep, the Artist Colony. And at one point, one of the artists said something about furrydom. Now, the question was, is there anything you hate?
One point at the Uber comic panel, someone said something about furrydom.
Yeah, well, first there was a question at the Uber comic panel that led to this, where they asked, like, what do you hate? Or, like, what do you hate about doing a comic? Or, have you ever gotten hate mail? Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And there were funny stories. And then this one webcomic artist says, and I didn't recognize her comic or anything, and she said something.
I'm not even sure which comic it is now that I'm looking through the con guide. I'm trying to figure out which one, and I can't.
She said something about, I hate it when people see a comic that is anthropomorphic art and associate it with furry culture, and went on this whole rant about, like, yiff piles or fur piles and all that stuff. And the crowd was like, grumble, 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 grumble. And there were a lot of disparaging comments made in the Picto chat. And after she stopped, there was a silence for a while. Like, it really killed the momentum. And I guess the story I was going to tell, and I was telling this to everyone who didn't go to the Uber webcomic panel.
At Connecticon, not UberCon.
I'm not going to cut that out. I'm going to leave that in for all of you who... we don't edit the show much, but that was a spectacular stumbling over a word. I'm proud of it.
Okay.
That was amazing.
You win a prize.
All right. So the Uber webcomics panel, and I was going to use that as an example of how a good MC could have kept the momentum going. But while I was telling the story, before I had gotten even halfway through it,
this person who was sitting at the adjacent table, drawing and not saying anything,
turns around and says, "That was me, blah, 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 blah."
I thought she just said, fuck you.
Yeah, it was a really, like, she was pissed.
Yeah.
And I think she thought that I was really going to rag on her about furrydom or something.
Well, we were kind of ragging on her. I was like, did you yell out and scream, screw you furries? Did you yell out and,
Yep. Well, the
you were
thing
saying
is,
bad stuff about furries.
Yep. And I would like to do a show on this at some point because
furries deserve bad stuff being said about them.
This is it's a thing that's actually coming up more and more at conventions, and it's getting to the point where AnimeCon people who run conventions have to deal with this, that there is anthropomorphic art, which I actually am a big fan of. And then there is furry culture, which is a whole different arena that is more of a fetish culture than an art culture. And people confuse the two, and the problem is that people who are a member of the non-perverted part seem to feel really persecuted, and as a result tend to be very vocal, and as a result tend to be very annoying, and as a result there's a lot of hate, some of it warranted and some of it unwarranted, for furries out there.
Yeah, because it starts out with a hate against the furry culture that's perverted sex fetish.
Yeah, and it's not like, like it's a fetish where I can see the psychological roots in many cases being not good.
Yeah.
As opposed to something like BDSM where I don't really care.
Like I don't begrudge anyone their fetish. I mean, whatever floats your boat. The problem is if the culture around your fetish is not good.
Yes, it has nothing to do with the fact that it's anthropomorphic.
Yeah, I mean, you can still do it all you want, but I'm going to make fun of you.
Yes.
That is what I am going to do.
And really, the beef is
and
that...
I am also not going to respect you or be friends with you.
Yes, and I mean, just the beef here is that we're not saying anything about anthropomorphic art or furry art or whatever, or even about the people who get off on that. It's about the culture of people who have a fetish, and they're very vocal about having the fetish, and then they wonder why people bother them about it. Because if you are very vocal about having any fetish, there's a lot of people who are going to bother you about it.
Yeah, most people who have fetishes besides furriness, like, S&M people, very few of them go around, yelling about how, oh, I'm an S&M guy, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, except when they go to their conventions.
Yeah. It's like they just keep it, they're normal people except for when they're doing their thing, which is when you're not around. They don't, they don't care to get you involved. There's nothing to do with you. Furries kind of like push their fetish out, and they're fans of this art, which is also trying to push itself as art. So it's sort of like they're dragging this bad baggage along with them for the ride.
It's like we've got good independent comics coming out in America now, but there's also all the underwear pervert comics. So when someone says, hey, do you read comics? To someone new who doesn't read comics, they think of the underwear pervert comics, and they don't know about the good comics.
Yep.
It's the same deal. And then she just yelled at us and then turned away, and the whole area is silent, and we're all like, that was awkward.
And I was like, we're going to talk about that on the show. And here we are.
And then we just kind of picked back up with our conversation, and then everyone else kind of picked back up. And she just sat there for a while.
Yeah, I was like, what's she going to do? She's just some furry girl.
Yeah, but then I apologized afterward because I tried to explain to her that I was actually going somewhere with that, and I wasn't disparaging you. I don't even know your comic, never heard of it.
Yeah, I hate that when people take something personally. If someone doesn't know you, it's not possible for them to give a personal insult. It's like, we don't know who this girl is. We still don't know her name or what comic she draws or anything. So how is it possible for us to personally insult her? Obviously, we're talking about something else.
Though, if you happen to be listening, at some point, I just burped. We are going to do a show on furrydom because
someone put that in the forum.
Yes, but the thing is, since we've got this Skype set up that's probably going to work, we're going to test it tomorrow probably. I wouldn't mind having you and other people like that on the show. I want to, when we do topics.
Yeah, if
now,
you're listening and you don't hate us.
Even if you hate us, we want hate mail.
Yeah.
We've never gotten hate mail. We're waiting for it. If you want to call in and yell at us for 20 minutes, we'll put that right on the air.
Oh, that'll go on the air so much faster than like Rim and Scott are the best. Rim and Scott are the best will just kind of stay on our hard drives and get listened to once a day. But
yeah.
Rim and Scott are assholes who should die is going to get put on the air and you'll get an interview right away. And no faking it, we can tell.
Yep. Because really, we want to get opposing viewpoints out because when we argue with each other, we always argue over the same things. And I know a lot of our listeners like the arguments. The best way for you to hear an argument is for you to hear us arguing with someone else.
Yep. Because it's a tag team effort, and I don't want to say this, but if me and Rim agree on whatever it is, we're not going to use evil editing tactics like some people on TV and radio. But if someone comes up against us and it's us versus them, the chances of them winning are not good.
Now,
if me and Rim agree.
Honestly, it really doesn't even depend on the kind of debate. I mean, there's debate where people are trying to come to a truth. wherein I think we will prove our point perfectly or near enough where the other person has no recourse. There is also debate where you're trying to win over a crowd, which I think we have pretty well down.
Considering the crowd is fans of us,
Yeah.
it's not hard to win you guys over.
Well, also just that Scott is better at the former and I'm better at the latter. So if we agree on something, we can use all of those tools combined, like a giant robot.
Yeah, it's sort of like if you want to see a Mike Tyson fight in argument form, you try to argue against both of us in something.
Yep, as some people on the forums have seen, though it's more difficult on the forums because I can't check it so often, so I'll see an argument that I think is bad, and before I can respond to it, 10 people post, and then, all right, I'm not going to dig up old news, whatever.
I mean, yeah, if you want to see an example, look at the sports argument that we had today in the forum.
Yep, or the libertarianism argument.
All right, let's finish the con. All right?
Okay.
So
okay.
we hung out for a few hours more, hanging out, talking with cool people about cool stuff. And then we finally said, okay, we must go.
All right, now we're leaving. The con doesn't go 24/7. It was going to close down in an hour.
At 1
anyway.
a.m. or so.
Yeah.
And it was like 11:45-ish.
Now,
We found the car
what is about
rather
to happen
quickly.
is not the fault of the con, but remember when I said to remember something at the beginning of this rant?
Yep. We get in the car, and we leave the parking lot. Now, there's a guy in a booth at the exit to the parking lot.
And there's like 6 cars in front of us trying to get out.
And they're not moving, as in they're having to stop and wait. And I'm like, what is taking them so long to pay and get the hell out of here?
And it looked like the guy was arguing with every single person in front of us.
Yeah, we're like, what's going on? And then I remembered, I paid already. We paid as soon as we got into the parking lot for $8 all day. And I said, wait a minute. I looked at the clock and it said 11:58.
I was like, son of a bitch, if they try to charge us because they made us wait in line past the deadline, we're driving through that block. And
I sure as hell was going to drive right through that stick. They got nothing. So I got up there and I hand the guy the ticket. And what does he say? He says, not what I expect, which is, this expired a minute ago. You have to pay money. It was, this expired at 8 p.m.
To which Scott immediately says, the lady this morning said it was all day. And the guy looked at us, and I think he got the hint that we were not going to back down. And he said, whatever.
He called someone on his walkie-talkie, and he had them push a button, which opened the gate, and we left.
Now,
and I would not have given him a goddamn penny.
Now, I saw that some of the people in front of us argued and didn't pay, but I saw that a lot of people did. Either the convention center was trying to rip these anime fans off by being very, very misrepresentative of the costs of parking, or someone was incompetent.
Yep. It was really, I think what it was is that, the convention center, they basically said, yeah, these people, you should give a deal for like all day parking, a flat fee. And, they thought that was a good idea. But I don't think the people in the parking lot management realized that the con went until 1, so that if you wanted to give an all day parking, you would have had to give someone parking from the right hours. There obviously wasn't a significant amount of communication and coordination between the convention and the parking and such.
I was kind of disappointed because I saw that everyone in front of us argued with this guy at length, and I was waiting to argue. I was all ready to call the police and tell them that a parking garage that we had already paid for was refusing to let us leave and create all sorts of a shitstorm.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy backed right down. And
I was like, the lady said this morning that this was for all day.
Yeah, Scott, that was Scott priming. I could tell because his voice changes when he's about to start an argument, because he'll stop and very calmly he will say the crux of the argument, the point at which if anyone disagrees with this point, the argument will begin. And I could see it in his eyes. He was waiting for it.
Yep.
And I was all ready to back him up. I had my cell phone out.
And the guy opened the gate and we left.
Yeah.
So let that be a lesson to all of you. Learn our ways and you will escape from parking lots with wallets intact.
In fact, at Otakon last year,
you won't even have to open your Jimmy.
Otakon parking is very expensive, second only to Katsucon.
Oh, mad expensive. Oh, this is a great story. We got to tell it right now.
Yes, I think we told it once before, but whatever. So we stay Thursday morning through Sunday afternoon at Otakon every
Now, we
year.
park in the parking lot attached to our hotel.
The very expensive, like it costs like between $40 and $60, depending on various factors every year.
Yeah, I mean, for 4 days of just not
like,
moving your car sits in there for a long time.
Yeah, because it's a primo parking place. I mean, you could park cheaper far away, but we don't care. Even when we were dirt poor, we would park there and then not have food.
Because it was just so convenient, we didn't care. Let them rip us off.
So we lost I lost the ticket that you have to use to prove how long you were in there. And I actually lost it. This wasn't a scam, though now I know that I can make it a scam.
Yep.
And I pull up to the booth, and it's Sunday, and we're about to drive to Wildwood, so we're like, whatever, we'll pay whatever stupid fine they want us to pay and get the hell out of here.
Yep.
So roll down the window, and he's like, ticket? And I'm like, I lost the ticket. And he's like, when did you get here? And I was like, Thursday morning. And he stands there for a second, doesn't say anything. Then he says, $20. And I said, all right. And I gave him $20, and he waved me through, and I'm reasonably certain that he pocketed it.
I think the strategy here is if there's ever parking lots where you get a ticket on the way in and you pay on the way out.
And it's not in your hometown.
And it's not in your hometown or anywhere near your home. Somewhere you're not likely to park again frequently. I mean, we park in this place annually. They're not going to remember us for shit.
Plus, we take a different car every year.
Yeah, I know. We brought a different car every single year. We go there at the exit. Throw your ticket in a bin somewhere, right? But don't lose it, but pretend to lose it. Hide it in your glove box.
Because you want to have it as a backup.
Yeah, so go up and say, I lost my ticket. I can't find my ticket. And if they say, when did you get here? Say, the trick here is if they say, when did you get here? Are you going to say, be honest, or are you going to say this morning?
Because you have to be willing to go all the way with whatever you just tried. Because if you say this morning and he says, I have video of you driving in Wednesday, you're fucked.
Yeah, if he says, well, you need to find the ticket. Can you look for it maybe? It can't be, you parked in here and you didn't go anywhere. How far could the ticket have gone?
Yeah, so if they're...
And then you take the ticket out and he sees that you lied. Uh-oh.
I recommend not lying.
I also recommend not lying.
Now, the key you got to play up here is that this guy is probably making minimum wage or thereabouts.
Mm-hmm.
So if he lets you go and you pay half of what you owed, but he just keeps it, that just tripled his hourly wage.
Uh-huh.
So, and he has no incentive. He doesn't care.
And the guy who owns the parking lot is making megabucks anyway. So
now,
you're kind of stealing, but you're not doing the stealing.
What kind of stealing?
You are going to pay the honest price. It's the guy in the little booth who's doing the stealing.
Yeah, no, I gotta say, that is the same logic from American Gods when they pull the violin scam.
I know, isn't it great?
It is.
It's perfect. It's flawless. There's not a single hole. It is cheddar, not Swiss.
Now, here's the legal side. Geeknights does not recommend you attempt this. It is against the law.
It's not actually against the law.
It depends on how you go about it.
Exactly. If you lie, it's probably kind of in the legal
also,
gray area.
Don't rationalize it. You are stealing, just whatever. I'm just noting that by accident, we ended up paying far less than we should have.
Yes, this was a completely honest. We weren't trying to scam. We literally lost the ticket, and we said when we got there, honestly. And the guy said $20, so we gave him $20 and we left.
Yep, and I even said, we got here Thursday morning. I was all set to pay everything.
Yep.
Now, I don't have anything else
Pretty
to
much,
say
they
about
can't
that.
make you pay more than you legally owe them. Unless maybe there was a discount that you're getting, they could take away a discount. So if you're already getting a legitimate discount, don't go for more because then you'll end up losing what you already got.
Yep.
But they can't charge you more than, what you're already supposed to be paying.
Well, no, because some garages have a $100 flat rate if you lose the ticket.
Oh, that is true. That is true. That's when you whip out the ticket.
You're like, oh, here it is, here.
If what you do is you drive up here. Let's pretend you'll be the guy, right?
All right.
Okay. I lost my ticket.
No ticket. Crash.
Oh no. No, and then he tells me there's a $100 fine. So I go, oh shit. Let me try to look for it some more. I don't have $100. I look for it. Oh, I got it. Hooray.
Fantastic, sir. I'm glad you weren't trying to defraud me in any way. Here's your actual bill. Have a good day.
$60. Here you go. $60. See ya.
Granted, there was also the strategy of... Now, keep in mind, we've never tried any of these. We came up with all of these on the way to Wildwood after we accidentally scammed the guy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. He tells you to look for it. Rummage around and keep rummaging around and act all nervous, but don't ever find anything. And there's a good chance the guy's going to say, God, whatever, just go.
Yep.
That happened to me once when I actually lost a ticket on the New York State Thruway.
The worst, though, here's the worst. You ready? The automated parking lots where there are no guys. There's only a gate.
They got me with that at Stewart fucking Airport when I didn't fly home.
Remember
for
when we had to
Christmas.
deal with that in Rochester near Jillian's? The
Oh,
little tiny parking lot.
Oh,
We didn't
yeah.
have enough quarters to open the damn gate. We couldn't get out or in. Or it was.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
We finally found a quarter under Rim's seat, and we were like, yes! And it it was great. We were able to escape the parking lot of doom.
Anyway, enough about parking. Connecticon was all right. It really, in my eyes, just wasn't worth the money. I mean, it cost almost pretty much the same as Otakon, yet while it had good things going, it didn't have enough to justify the cost in my eyes.
Yeah, and even though if you took the con, if it was run perfectly, as in everything, there was more staff, things were run smoother, they didn't have some of the problems they had that were easily solved. Even if all those things were fixed, there wasn't enough happening there to be worth.
One other thing, their musical guest canceled at the last minute.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So they didn't have Bad Luck performing.
Yeah.
And they had Piano Squall, but I just find it funny that they're like, Piano Squall appears as a musical guest at the anime convention Otakon, where he performed for an audience of 3,000. Now, I just want to say as an aside, it was only 3,000, and that was mostly because Piano Squall appeared on Sunday in a non-main room at Otakon.
I think they might be referring to the time when Piano Squall...
But they say specifically 2005.
Oh, do they really?
Yes.
Oh, okay, because I think in 2004, Piano Squall performed at the intermission of the cosplay, which would have been to much more than 3,000 probably.
I guess he's a smart guy, and I respect what he does, but I'm not a big fan. It's not that special.
Yeah, it's sort of like, oh, that guy makes a good something. His works of art are good. I do not enjoy them. Let him be.
Well, I guess I would enjoy him, except it doesn't really change so much. It's just Piano Squall.
Exactly.
Now, also, there was a masquerade which looked... It must have been good because it was standing room only, even after more than half of it had elapsed.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, a lot of people walk out of a small cons masquerade about halfway through.
Yeah, I knew that the masquerade was going on because the hallways were empty. Of course, there is another hypothesis I have as to why it was so crowded, is because the con really didn't... I mean, at Anime Next, everything was happening at night. During the day, there wasn't so much happening, but at night, the con was happening. At Connecticon, other than the gaming room, the con really wasn't happening at all. So, the masquerade was an actual happening, so everyone flocked to it. Like, finally, yes, something is going on.
Yeah, because honestly, there just wasn't much to do for me. I mean, I like going to panels, and just not many of the panels really interested me. And the fact that the only panel, the first panel I went to was the anime comic or or club panel that I talked about. That really led me away from wanting to go to any other panels.
Yeah, I mean, if the con had a problem where they didn't have enough panelists and they had to push staff when they were short on staff into doing panels and to just fill up the schedule, then obviously a lot of the panels aren't probably going to be the best ways to spend my time.
Now, that may or may not have been true, but that was the impression I got.
That is the impression I got.
And also, I'll note that they had a dance.
Of course, that was from one panel.
Yeah, but that's...
But also from the horse's mouth of one of the staff people.
Yep, because she said there were numerous panels like that.
Yep.
And also just people, like our friend Kat looked at a bunch of panels and said they were all kind of meh.
Mm-hmm.
And no one, I didn't see anyone coming out of a panel like, woo, woo.
Yep. Yeah, the panels all seemed sparsely populated, people milling in and out. And, the panels all had closed doors, like the way the building...
Yeah, you would walk right past all the panel rooms and not know they were there.
Yeah, that's another thing, is like at Otakon, they, if there's a panel going on and the panel is, opening or closing, the doors are open so you can, you walk by and a panel catches your eye. At this con, they kind of had to, because of the way everything was, laid out in the building. You had to keep those doors closed or else it'd be trouble. But you'd walk by and you just walk down the hallway past a bunch of closed doors. You had no idea there was a panel in there. It wouldn't catch your eye. You wouldn't hear someone talking in a room and then be lured in by the interesting things they were saying. And I think we probably missed out on a lot of stuff going on simply because we didn't pass by and catch it. We passed by a closed door with a silence behind it.
Now, in regards to saying the con was overpriced, I wish I could look at their books or see what they spent their money on because my best guess, and this is completely out of the air, out of my ass, because I have to guess about every possible thing because I have no information about how much anything cost, how much money they had, or anything.
I know that it could have been true that like the gaming room cost $1 billion. We don't know.
But it is my guess that Connecticon is not actually big enough to warrant being in that convention center. And
it is also my guess that convention center being new, fancy, and union and not used a great deal is very, very expensive.
I have a feeling that if Connecticon were in a large hotel cluster as opposed to this convention center, it would be cheaper and much better because this is one of those cons that lends itself to people getting together and hanging out all night long, which is very
especially with the awesome gaming room because they could keep that open all night long.
It would have been
the relatively good, average, slightly above average video game room, which they could have gone all night long.
It would have been a fantastic all-night con.
I know. If I could have played games all night, that would have been like, woohoo!
We probably would have stayed.
Especially if it cost less money.
We probably would have left sometime Sunday instead of Saturday night if...
I would have paid a 3-day if I would have known the gaming was that good before I had gone there.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's just... I wonder why they're in the convention center. I mean, is there a reason they need to be there? Did they not
They weren't using the whole convention center. It's like they had more room than they needed. And really, cons... a lot of cons skimp, and that's the thing. Cons need to skimp. You need to spend as little money as possible. If you have more than you need, that's a problem because you're costing all your members money. You need to be like right on the edge, exactly what you need, not more, not less.
And I also wonder if the high cost has anything to do with the budgetary problems Connecticon faced last year.
Yeah, Connecticon, that's the only thing I knew about Connecticon before going to it was a convention. It was in Connecticut. A lot of webcomic people went to it. And last year they had problems because either A, they didn't read the contract they signed with the convention center, or B, the convention center screwed them and they should have gotten a lawyer. So either way, they screwed up.
Yeah, we don't know the details specifically, so we can't say.
Yes, but from the internet news that I read, I remember the conclusion we came to based on that news was either A, they were dumb and they didn't read a contract, or B, they were dumb and they should have gotten a lawyer.
Yeah, because I can't foresee any other situation that could have led to the thing they had to face.
Yes, if
the
someone knows more about that situation and would like to clarify and or correct us, feel free.
Yes, I would love to get feedback on this.
Because this is a great thing to talk about, is this kind of stuff.
I would love to have enough information to be able to give advice. Because I really think that I give good advice when it comes to conventions.
Yeah, I think that, all this con really needs is polish. It's a good con. I mean, they had a great gaming room. They had some other good stuff like the Bunny Bucks, which we talked about yesterday.
Yep.
And lots of good stuff going on. A lot of webcomic. I mean, if you're getting guys from California or webcomic artists to come to your con, that's good stuff.
But also bad stuff like, the money situation.
Yeah, you just had to get the con to run smoother. You need to make it cheaper and, maybe change the location. I think if the con went somewhere else and then outgrew that somewhere else, it could move back to the convention center. And it's really all it needs is just some polish.
Yeah, I really wonder where the money goes because they spent the money, which supposedly wasn't so much to get the full color con book, but what if instead of getting the full color con book, they could have used that money to buy better signage for something or a bunch of fives or something?
Yeah. I mean, I think the guy said something like it was only $400. So $400 is how many $5 bills?
Well, $400 could have done a lot of things.
Yeah,
$400
it's like they say, oh, it's only $400 to get full color, and you hear that and you say, well, printing costs thousands of dollars. That's a great deal.
But $400 could have paid for another guest.
Yeah, $400 could have paid for a lot of things. So you got to wonder what this con is doing and what goes on there and what the staff and the chair and whoever, what they're all up to. And remember the guy who came up to us late at night and he was in charge of what?
Oh, he was in charge of everything.
Yeah,
everything involving webcomics. And he was some staffer, and he seemed like a cool guy.
And I was like, well, do you have any staff under you? He's like, no, it's just me. And I was like, oh my God, you're running half this con all by yourself.
Yeah, Connecticon needs a lot more staff. I mean, it takes a lot of staff to run an anime con.
And they
in
did
fact-
not have enough at all.
In fact, the Connecticon costs so much money, but almost any problem a con faces during the convention itself can be solved by having either A, more well-trained or experienced staffers, or B, more staffers.
Yeah, you can either have an army of gophers or one or two really awesome staff people with loud voices or megaphones, or C, both. Both.
Yep, like just there's a whole bunch of tiny little things I really don't want to get into because we've gone on forever. It's after midnight. I had a 5-hour drive home and I'm very tired. But a whole bunch of little things like traffic flow and walking was very difficult in a lot of areas. And it would have been trivial if you had enough staff to have a staffer just sweeping that hallway, making sure everyone kept moving. Little things like that. Maybe I would have put that Nero business outside because I'm proud that you had something cool like that at your con, because many cons wouldn't even begin to think about the liability of having a bunch of kids hitting each other with Boffa weapons in convention space.
As an official thing, as you know, I mean, a lot of conventions just kids decide that they're going to go outside and hit each other with sticks. But this is an official, like, con thing. It's on the map of the convention. Like, here is the area of the convention where people hit each other with sticks.
I would never have sanctioned that if I were staff or security at a convention. I would have put it outside.
Yeah, I mean, the Nero guys are having people sign waivers and stuff, but I would have been like, no, you can come to the convention. You cannot have hitting each other with sticks as an official convention event.
You could, but I would have it outside.
Unless you sign this contract accepting all liability and have it outside.
Which they may have, but even then, it just seemed like, especially since they were doing the fighting in the middle of a crowded room with just a rope on the floor around everyone.
Yeah, but there was a kind of the spectators made a little wall around them, so.
Yeah, but it seemed like a situation that could have turned bad at any second, and I would have handled it differently. But that's
it
just
was
me.
definitely sketchy. Definitely sketchy.
I guess I've been doing this for so long. I really tend to edge on the side of safety.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right. Do we have any?
Except when it comes to fireworks.
Oh, of course.
But that's a completely unrelated episode.
Do we have anything else to say about Connecticon?
Really? I don't, other than that, unless either the price comes down or they invite us as panelists, I really couldn't see myself paying to go back to Connecticon.
Yeah, unless they lower their price or they do some changes to their con or something, I'm not going to go back if I have to pay.
I mean, all they need is a little bit of extra planning and someone who's good at being an MC.
And more staff.
Yeah, that's really it.
Yep.
And I have a lot of advice on how to handle all of those, but if anyone wants to hear that, maybe I'll do a Geek Night special or something. Because
Maybe.
I'm tired and I think we're done.
Yeah, how long is this gone? It's a long one.
We've gone over an hour and a half just on the bits, starting with the thing of the day.
Cool.
Yeah, luckily we went short on the news.
Are we running out of Libsyn?
Actually, no, because Libsyn finally caught up suddenly on the archiving.
Hooray.
I think we're going to push it now because of this super long episode that we just made,
Great.
but we're fine.
Well, let's end it.
All right, it's over.
Bye.
And that was Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for our opening theme.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com. If you like our podcasts, you'll love our forums. Make sure you visit them. You can send your email feedback to geeknights@gmail.com. And if you want, you can leave us a voicemail at 206-333-1537.
Geek Nights airs every weeknight, Monday through Thursday.
Geek Nights is recorded with absolutely no studio and no audience. But unlike those other talk shows, it's actually recorded at night.